Hello, this is Polegenko, and in this video essay, I'm going to be explaining some of the barriers of attending school in developing countries. How is it different for boys and girls, and what are some ways we could overcome these barriers? In an article by World Vision, they define barriers to education as things that prevent children from attending school or from reaching minimum educational standards. Some barriers are physical, such as the shortage of school. Some depend on circumstance, such as where the child lives and how much money the family has. In an article by Global Citizen, Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO, stated that firstly, education is a human right, a public good, and a public responsibility. Secondly, education is the most powerful force in our hands to ensure significant improvements in health, to stimulate economic growth, to unlock the potential and innovation we need to build more resilient and sustainable societies. With education being so important, we must ask ourselves why there are so many barriers that hinder children from getting the education they deserve. Some of the barriers hindering education in developing countries include poverty and war, other priorities in children's lives such as family, transportation, not having a ride to or from school, not having enough teachers, schools, supplies. With so many barriers hindering children from getting a proper education in developing countries, it is not surprising that 262 million children and young people are out of school. In an article by Brighter Children, they stated a quarter of the world's school-age children, 462 million, live in countries affected by wars and disasters. They also stated that a child who is out of school for more than a year is very unlikely to ever return. In places where there's war and disaster, oftentimes there's also poverty. In the Global Citizen article, there is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights makes clear that every child has the right to a free basic education, so that poverty and lack of money should not be a barrier to schooling. With school being free in many countries, why is this still a barrier? Well, many countries have informal fees, such as uniforms, books, pens, lessons, exam fees. Many of these fees add up, therefore hindering many families from sending their children to school. Since I'm currently in Ukraine, I thought it'd be appropriate to talk about the school system here. Talking with my family and children who finished school or still in school, I noticed a few big differences here than in the United States. For example, here education is free until the 5th grade. After the 5th grade, families are required to pay 100 hryvnia, which is around $4 per month to send a child to school. With war zones and poverty, this leads to many other barriers, such as lack of teachers moving away, lack of schools and classrooms being taken away to house soldiers. A lack of teachers and underpaid teachers is a problem all around the world. However, it is especially hard in developing countries, where lack of teachers and underpay is a big barrier for children in education. I have asked my cousin Kostya to come in the video and explain some of the issues with the lack of teachers and underpaid teachers here in Ukraine.
В Україні зараз дуже нестабільна ситуація економічна, і тому вчителям виплачується дуже мала заробітна плата. Тому молодь не йде працювати вчителями. І за це не вистачає вчителів, та школи навіть закриваються за цього.
With the shortage of teachers and underpaid teachers, there also comes unqualified teachers. Here in Ukraine, there are few teachers have left the selo and have moved on, and therefore having teachers who normally teach English teach physics, and teachers who teach woodwork teach biology. The Global Citizen article states that there are 130 million children in school who are not learning basic skills like reading, writing, and math. With not having enough money to pay teachers, there's also not enough money for new supplies, where schools have bare minimum instruments for physics and not lab practicals. Textbooks are very old. I have asked my cousin Solomita to share some of her experience learning in school.
Привіт, я Соломіта. Я навчаюся в 11 класі. І в нашій школі, як і в багатьох інших школах України, не вистачає приладів для фізики, для лабораторних робіт з біології та хімії. Не вистачає також спортивного інвентаря, немає спортивних залів, актових залів. У школах багато чого не вистачає. Старі підручники, які не підходять до програми, а як і нові підручники, дуже довго йдуть, і коли можна півроку навчатися взагалі без підручників.
With these kind of facilities and the bathrooms being outside, just a hole in the ground, it is hard for students to get a proper education in these kind of settings. However, the schools are not the only thing responsible for hindering children's education. In developing countries, children oftentimes have other priorities, such as families and work. However, the priority also depends on the gender of the student. Female students generally have more responsibilities doing with family, helping raise the children, around the house chores, and males have work. Oftentimes, child labor comes into play. According to World Vision, child labor is work that is physically or mentally dangerous and which interferes with children's ability to go to school. It is not surprising that children who work long hours in agriculture, in factories, or on the streets make up significant portions of the world's out-of-school children. With the family not having enough money for basic needs such as food, shelter, and clothes, oftentimes children are sent to work early. This is typically a job for the male students. In the developing world, nearly 1/3 of girls are married before 18, and 1/3 of women give birth before 20, according to UNICEF in the Brighter Children's article. An article by Stories Worlded, a girl named Sarah Nitch was 16 years old when she dropped out of school to help take care of her family. At the time, medical bills and debt had caused her parents to migrate to Thailand. Her oldest sister had to take a job in an electric factory. Sarah Nitch was left responsible for taking care of her younger sister, her grandmother, and her family's house in rural Cambodia. In rural areas where children have to travel far to get to and from school, sometimes buses are available and sometimes they are not. Girls are more likely to be harmed or raped, abducted and sold into the sex trafficking industry, or many other things that could go wrong along the way. Boys also face challenges. Here in Ukraine, young gentlemen ages 20 to 27 are being taken into the army every day. For a child not to be taken in the army, he must be active in school. Talking with one of my cousins, he told me about how a few of his friends, once finishing high school, they decided to go to university just to avoid being drafted into the army. Not caring about their education, with education being so important for the growth of the society and the culture, there must be ways to overcome these barriers that hinder so many children from attending school. Global Citizen article suggested that if each developing country invested just 15 cents more per child, it would make all the difference. But just giving money can't fix all the issues. We must also get parents involved. Educating parents of how sending their children to school would help benefit the entire society. With many children leaving school before completing their education due to family pressure, looking after the home while parents are working, taking care of younger siblings, or being sent directly to work before they are legally of age in order to contribute financially to the family, are usually the most widespread reasons for this. This was stated in an article by Pro Future. If we educate the family of the importance of sending children to school, we might be able to get a few more children. We could also personally help out those developing countries in improving their educational systems by donating to organizations built to building better schools, training teachers in developing countries to help increase the amount of children getting a proper education, and personally help getting young boys and girls an education they so desperately need. With so many different organizations working to help increase education in developing countries, we could simply donate to any of them, such as Pro Future, World Vision, and World Education. By taking these steps to help developing countries give children the proper education that they desperately need to help grow the society. Thank you for listening to me all the way from Ukraine.